Thank you, Mary, for bringing us into worship this morning with those hymns. I appreciate it so much. The choir is going to be singing a version of Psalm 23. I don't have the words up, but I think you know the words. So they will sing now. It is wonderful to have all of you here this morning. I am thankful to be in worship this day, and especially with each of you. I'm going to introduce those who are in the meeting house. This morning we have Gage Stemmer and Ellen Craig. We have Doug Baker and Kay Mendenhall. We have Cleo and Diana McFarland and Tom Harold. We also have Rob, and it's separated, one side of the room versus the other side of the room. Rob and Val Pearson, Doug and Kathy Simmons, Michelle Lilly and Brian Lilly. We have Nita Burton and Dennis Engel. We have Sharon Reinard. We have Janet Ross. Janet, you came by yourself today. Thank you. Yay. And we have Susan Simons. It's good to see you, Susan. We have Dave Longnecker. We have Marcia Holliger and Norman Karen Peters and Susie Turner and Missy Smith. We're glad to have you here. And we have Mary Clark and Ron and I. Those are the ones that are here in person. On Zoom this morning, we have Cliff Painter from California. He was first on the list this morning, guys. So we're glad to have you, Cliff. It's good to have you here. We have Dwight Ferguson from Bella Vista, Arkansas. Welcome, Dwight. We have Terry Reinert from his home here in Winchester. Welcome. We have Teresa Wallace, who is with us this morning. It's good to see you, Teresa, and she's with Kenny Girton out at Summers Point. We have Bill and Joyce Wagner from Muncie, Indiana. Welcome, Bill and Joyce. We have Keith Kendall from Friends Fellowship. Welcome, Keith. It's good to see you. We have Rhonda and Sam Schofield and Delmer Ferguson from Delmer's Place in Overland Park, Kansas. It's good to have you here this morning. We have Eileen Critch here from her home here in Winchester. We have Stan and Gretchen Hendrickson from their home just outside of Winchester. Welcome, Stan. And we have Pat Engel from her home here in Winchester. Welcome, Pat. We have Nate and Becky Edmonds from their home in Deerfield, Indiana. Welcome. And we have Lois Hogue from her home in Sarasota, Florida. For those of you who don't know, we got to see Lois in person this week. She was in Portland with the funeral of her sister-in-law. So we are thankful that you made it back home safe and sound and that you were with us this morning. She says she misses everybody, but she says, I'm glad I can be on Zoom. So I'm thankful you're on Zoom too. We have Jeff Clark, who is here with us this morning from his home in Winchester. Yeah, you're there, Jeff, whether you want to be or not. Kathy Burton from her home here in Winchester. Welcome, Kathy. We have Nancy Wolf from her home in Greenfield, Indiana. Welcome, Nancy. We have Pat Denny from her home in Bloomington. Welcome, Pat. We have Charlie and Valerie Boyd from their home in Wichita, Kansas. It's good to see you guys this morning. We have Tony and Marcia Critch from their home in Winchester. Welcome, Tony and Marcia. We have Suzanne Weber from her home here in Winchester. Welcome, Suzanne. We have Kendra Holliger from her home in Indianapolis. Welcome, Kendra. We have Deborah Lilly from her home in Modoc, Indiana. Welcome, Deborah. And we have Dave and Nancy Brumfield from their temporary home in Lorinda, Florida. Thank you, Brumfields, for being here this morning. Those are the people who have gathered here, and now we will sing a hymn to begin our morning worship.
We'll give you just a moment extra to find this hymn today. It's kind of hard to find. It's number 2 in the hymnal. Don't have to flip through too many pages to find number 2. For those of you here in the room, if you are able and would like to, we'd love for you to stand as you sing. We'll sing together, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, number 2 in our hymnal. Come thou fount of every blessing, to my heart to sing thy praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melody sonnet, sung by ringing tones above. Praise his name, I'm fixed upon it. May Thank you. You may be seated. I hope you all could hear that from here in the room today. These guys are singing well.
And it is a wonderful hymn to begin worship this morning. I am really thankful for Ron's reflection. Unfortunately, I struggle with mercy. Ron, in his reflection, there were many things that I pointed out to him that I appreciated. One of the ones was that in talking about righteousness, that we will be filled if we live a life of righteousness. And he says that nourishment in turn energizes in me a desire to get involved in Christ's redemptive work in the world. That's a good explanation for mercy. But he also goes on to say on the second page about how mercy flows out of relationship, whereas forgiveness is more of a form of transgression. And while I believe that, I also am very aware that the Beatitude says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." And therein lies my struggle. For me to be merciful and for me to receive mercy, that means I need to be merciful. And I sometimes struggle with that. In 2020, Quaker Life did a whole book about mercy. And in this book, they talk about mercy is in some sense an act of forgiveness. And it's a healthy forgiveness that does not keep open the possibility of future harm. And then there are some people who wrote in this book the importance of remembering God's mercy to ourselves as we learn to offer mercy to others, which is what I'm getting at. In conjunction with mercy is its appearance of forgiveness and grace. Many of us honestly desire wrongdoers to be forgiven. I'm going to say that again. Many of us honestly desire wrongdoers to be forgiven. I say that because it is a hard thing to do sometimes. And looking at the prodigal son, sometimes people say it's kind of unfair because we realize that the younger brother's celebration was thrown together not probably out of the older brother's portion of their father's estate. There is a lot of complexity in forgiveness and in mercy, and these complexities draw us back into community because sometimes these complexities damage the community. Sometimes mercy is seen as a demonstration of God's loving kindness. I think that is probably true more often than not. God's loving kindness comes to us in God's work to liberate us from our sinning, not only just to forgive our sin. Mercy is our human participation in God's kingdom. Mercy as the redemption of suffering. It's also about generational suffering. Many of us have suffered traumas in our childhood, in our past. Mercy is about being healed from those traumas. And mercy is about ministering to others from those traumas because they have similar wounds. Mercy is compassionate care for innocent people. Mercy is, beyond that, while at the same time lifting up the practice of justice as a necessary component of our healing. The presence of suffering within the faith community and the reality that some suffering is never relieved during our lifetime is an important thing to remember. Mercy is a sacred, scandalous gift that reveals the face of God, and it is a face present that is different in each one of us. So I would want to encourage each of you to find this copy. I have several of them here if you want one. Most of you get Quaker Life, but this is from fall of 2020. And to begin, or to end my part, I would just like to read the poetry of John Greenleaf Whittier about forgiveness. My heart was heavy, for its trusts had been abused, its kindness answered with foul wrong. So, turning gloomily from my fellow man, one summer Sabbath day, I strolled among the green mounds of the village burial place, where, pondering how all human love and hate find one sad level, and how soon or late, wronged and wrongdoer, each with meekened face and cold hands folded over a still heart, pass the green threshold of our common grave, whether all footsteps tend where none depart. Odd for myself and pitying my race, our common sorrow, like a mighty wave, swept all my pride away, and trembling I forgave. Lord, let it be so.
The 10th chapter of Luke's Gospel gives us this story, a parable that Jesus told to his disciples to illustrate the topic of our focus today. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus said right back to him, what is written in the law? How do you read it? And the man answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus replied, you've answered correctly. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who exactly is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, there was a man who was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothing, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw that man, also passed by on the other side. But then a Samaritan, the hated, despised Samaritans, as he traveled, came by there where this man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, look after him, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. So then Jesus asked this guy, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? And the expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus told that teacher, go and do likewise. Go and do likewise. God does more than merely forgive our sins. God does more than pick us up and then wish us good luck and go on his way. God gets involved in our trouble in order to help lift us out of it and to help us stay out of it going forward. It is the difference between forgiveness and mercy. To forgive and then move on means that I establish no relationship whatsoever. It is basically a transaction. I will give you my forgiveness. You'll give me your promise to do better next time. Relationship goes much deeper than that. When God lifts us out of the trouble we are in and then stays with us to make sure that we don't fall right back into the same hole that we had dug for ourselves, he equips us for discipleship going forward that will let us have that same kind of ministry to others that we meet in life who are struggling and being beaten up by life. I will just go to my grave indebted to our friend Stan for telling us about that thing that happened to him when he was a teenager in his church. I can still remember sitting there listening to Stan tell that story. Stan was a rabble-rousing kid, I think. But he was so perceptive, even as a teenager. He saw that what that guy had done, the rich businessman, in holding the migrant worker accountable for paying for the little bit of cosmetic damage to his fancy car when the migrant worker's pickup was disabled and he couldn't even get to work anymore. To hold that poor migrant worker accountable for paying for a scratch on the side of this guy's luxury sedan was the absolute opposite of mercy. And yet that guy did that so that he could tell the church, oh, the Lord provide miraculous money for my faith promise pledge. I will never be able to hear about mercy ever again without remembering Stan telling us that story. Stan always said, the law would hold that guy who ran the stop sign accountable. He caused that accident. And just as the law that was being spread around by the teachers of the law in Jesus' time did, it prescribed penalties for people who broke the law. And this guy ran the stop sign, so the penalty is that he gets a ticket for a traffic violation. He also gets a ticket for not carrying proper insurance on his vehicle, and he gets to pay that repair bill out of his pocket with money he did not have and probably wasn't going to have anytime soon. Stan said, you can respond to other people by beating them up with the law. Or you can go to the next level and forgive them. And you can just say, I'm going to forgive you. My car's not damaged all that bad. Have a nice day. And just go on down the street, leaving that guy there with his smoking engine that makes his pickup unable to be used. Leaving him there with all of those bills to pay, leaving him there with no means of getting to work so that he could earn the money, maybe be able to pay the fines and the penalties. But still, you've forgiven him. You said, oh, sorry, just a scratch, it'll be okay. God does more for us than that. God saw that the law was being violated. He saw that there were procedures in place in the temple system to bring forgiveness by making sacrifices. And God saw that it wasn't stopping the problem. People were falling right back into the same hole that they had already dug for themselves. So God came to earth. God in human flesh, the incarnation, and came to show us how to stay out of those holes, came to fill our lives with mercy, to get involved with us and lift us out of the trouble we were in, and then help us and strengthen us and show us how to stay out of those holes and how to help other people find that same mercy. That's the difference between the law and between mere forgiveness. Mercy builds relationship and helps to lift people out of their trouble, and then accompanies them in order to help them to stay out of it. I learned a new thing in reading online this week about what some theologians think about mercy. The new thing that maybe I've seen this in the past, but it just never registered. They said that the difference between grace and mercy is that mercy is, as I put on that paragraph title on the back page, mercy is withheld punishment. You know, that's like the guy that's headed for death row and the governor signs a waiver so that he does not have to be killed, a pardon. Mercy means judgment is withheld, punishment is withheld. Grace is the one that I always thought I always thought mercy, the Hebrew word I think is chesed. The understanding of mercy that I was always given was unmerited favor. And these guys said, no, mercy is withheld punishment. Grace is unmerited favor. Grace is the positive side of mercy, withholding punishment. Regardless of how you define those things, it's what Christ does for us. It's why God came to earth to build relationship with us and get involved with us so that he could lift us out of the trouble we've gotten ourselves into by his forgiveness, but he goes beyond forgiveness to, in mercy, accompany us through life, to show us how to stay out of those holes and to give us opportunities for ministry to show mercy to others. The queries that we've posed at the end of this essay are these. We threw in 5 because I had one extra line. Why do you think that the Christian businessman in this story thought only of the faith promise that he had made and not of the orchard worker's plight? What about Christians makes us blind to those opportunities? Number 2, where or in what situations in today's world do you think Christ's mercy is most sorely needed? Number 3, in your view, why is our current culture focused so heavily on justice and so little on mercy? Number 4, why would Clarence Jordan say that failing to share Christ's message with the spiritually lost is unmerciful? And number 5, why is mercy that continues beyond forgiveness so important to meaningful relationships? Why is it so important to Christian witness? I remembered one thing that I found in my notes, and I forgot to put it in here. In that withheld punishment paragraph, one of the things that the guy named Charles Moore also wrote, he said, mercy is most Christ-like when it arises out of compassion for people who have lost their way, when we feel their distress and seek to understand rather than condemn. It's a really important sentence. The thing that he went on to say was that mercy enables us to see the person first, not the problem first. That's mind-stickable. Mercy allows us to see the person first, not the problem first. I'm so thankful that God has treated me that way. It is an instructive lesson for all of us that we are to treat others that way too. We welcome your responses to these queries or other things that have come to your mind and heart as you think about this topic. If you are online, you'll need to unmute. Pam will be here to help out. If you're here in the room, I'll have the mobile microphone and be glad to bring it to you. We are so thankful you've joined us today. So thankful for your engagement with this topic. This is a really important step in the Beatitudes journey. Please be faithful to share what God has put on your hearts today. Thank you all.
I can't speak directly to the first query about the Christian businessman because obviously I'm not in his position. Each of us has their own way of dealing with things, but if I understand the concept of the query, the question is why was he thinking only of the faith promise and not of the workers' plight? It would seem that each of us, or at least the one, no, I can't speak for anybody else but myself, but it would seem that we're more concerned with doing what we have to do. We're legally bound to do this, that, and the other. Whereas to go and be concerned about the orchard worker, I mean, going the extra mile. It's a long way about to say it, but each of us feels like, well, we've done what we have to. That's enough. Shame on us, Lord.
Thank you.
I guess I kind of fall back on I'm I'm a Rich Mullins guy, so and uh, and so I've struggled with this myself really, and asked a lot of people questions about all of this mercy and judgment, and our discussions with my family, kind of arguments a little bit about uh, why do I want to show somebody else mercy? Why can't I be judgmental toward them or something or whatever? But I think about, like, there's a line in one of Rich Mullins' songs that says, "When we love, we walk on water, but just don't stumble on the waves." And that kind of happens sometimes, that when you're out there and you're in the world and you show somebody mercy or something, or you do something that you feel like needs to be done for somebody, and then they don't take the ball and run with it, or you've helped them, or you've done something, and then they've done the same thing again and fallen back into that or whatever. So, I guess uh, mercy and judgment, two opposite ends of the spectrum. And so I've struggled with that for a long time. And when I was driving around, the people coming for the Quaker education thing, I drove uh, that lady named Judith to different places around, and I think she was an African lady, but she was pretty wise, and she I thought, well, hey, I'm going to ask her. I said I kind of fall on more of the merciful more than the judgment side or the righteousness side, or that I'm doing everything correct. I've got all the answers. Uh, and I said I fall more on the merciful side, where I don't want to be judgmental of other people. And then she kind of got me to question my own uh, kind of faith, article of faith or belief there at that point, where I said I fall on the merciful side instead of the judgment. And her response back to me was, she said, "Well, you raised kids, didn't you?" And I thought, okay, yeah, I get it now. Uh, didn't have to say another word at that point. That uh, I guess probably our relationship with God and whatever and Father is the same situation in our lives, even as we're adults, where um, we need guidance and direction along the way. Same way we provided guidance and direction to our kids and didn't just let them run amok as they were growing up. We had to be a little bit controlling and a little bit judgmental of what they were doing to help them grow up. And so I didn't realize I was doing it, but we did that with our kids. And I guess it just kind of came natural. But so I still believe mercy is what first brought me to God and saved me from uh, a lot of things in my life, and it still brings me to God, the mercy. And so I like that to be what I fall upon, is the mercy, rather than trying to judge somebody. And Mary and I really like that show, Ted Lasso, and a lot of bad language in it, but there's some quotes in there where he says to be curious and not judgmental. And as we're going through life, I think probably ways to set our sails are to be curious and not judgmental of certain situations, and to be patient. God has been patient with me, and I know in my life. So I want to provide that same patience to other people without trying to say, hey, do it the way I'm doing it. I've got all the answers, and I don't. So it's just a constant learning situation.
Thank you, Jeff.
I too would like to address the first query. Why do I think the Christian businessmen thought only of the faith promise and not of the orchard workers' plight? Well, as we've heard already, that he could have had mercy on that person. It could have started first with the notion of forbearance. Forbearance is the right to some type of legal action, but you set it aside. Even though you have the right, you set it aside. It's a form of mercy. Thinking about how the Christian businessman thought of this as an opportunity to make good on his promise, his pledge to provide funding, reminds me of Gandhi, how Mahatma Gandhi had written about the 7 social sins. And one of those was religion without sacrifice. He had pledged to make the sacrifice, and then instead of making the sacrifice himself, he looked for opportunities where others would make the sacrifice for him. I think you kind of missed the point there. In the Lord's Prayer, we ask the Lord to have forbearance against us, or for us. We say, in the same way that we forgive others, for their trespasses and sins against us. May the Lord also forgive our trespasses, our sins. And then finally, on question 2, where or what situations in today's world do you think Christ's mercy is most sorely needed? I think there's a glaring example of that on the border today. Many people, sure, there are, I'm sure, some criminals that are slipping over and wreaking havoc in our country. They would wreak havoc wherever they went. But I think the vast majority of people coming here are just desperate for mercy, desperate for an opportunity to prove that they would be very productive and very grateful and demonstrate that gratitude through their daily lives and through their industry. And I think that is a place where Christ's mercy is very much needed in the world. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
I think I finally unmuted.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have a new iPad, so I'm learning. In thinking about mercy, as you probably most of you know, I live in Bloomington, and Bloomington this time of the year is pretty consumed with basketball. The men have lost, I think it's 7 straight games. Their last home game, I think it was Friday, they were booed at halftime, and many people left, and they were booed at the end of the game. My first thought was, yeah, boo, they're just not trying. They're not, whatever. And then the more I've thought about it, I don't think booing is helping. And just in talking to friends and people at the grocery store, it's just creating anger and tension. And I started thinking, what if I responded differently? That maybe I wouldn't myself personally say maybe they need our prayers, but maybe they need us to be thoughtful and kind. No one wants to win those games more than those players. This is what they've lived for their whole life to get to a top college and perhaps go on to have a future in basketball. And this is pretty, I don't know how they choose the NBA players and all that, but I can't help but think this was not helping their situation or their prospects. They have to be really, really devastated. And who am I or we in Bloomington as a fan base are we to boo them instead of praying for them or encouraging them or, I don't know, being positive? So I've decided this week that's what I'm going to do. I've kept pretty quiet. But this week, when people approach me with how awful they are, yada, yada, I'm going to tell them that I've developed mercy for them and I'm praying for them. That's it.
Thank you.
I just want to say real quick, Pat, I do definitely agree with what you were saying on the more we boo people, I think people have more of a tendency to think to themselves that, yeah, I am worthless, I am not good, I am, there's no point in trying to get better because this is just who I am. I see that a lot, not just in the basketball community, but I guess in the correctional community too. I've had the opportunity to work alongside a lot of men who, going through the correction system. And I say the word correction, I guess, loosely. It's more the punitive system than it is the correction system. I think a lot of the people that I've worked with and I got to talk to have gone through so much of their life getting booed. They have been told that they're not worth anything, that they're worthless. And then alongside this, I've been working with people that have committed actions that have labeled them as monstrous. They're associated with the worst kinds of people. And for a lot of people in those situations that have made these decisions, while they are awful choices that they have made, one thing, well, I'll say a few things about it. One thing, I have hardly ever run into a person who has done something horrible that has not had something horrible done to them too when they were young, and not just once, but almost their whole lives. So one thing that I appreciate that Ron said too is seeing the person rather than the situation, because once you take the time to actually get to know some of these people that have done wrong and have committed these actions, is that they have suffered immensely, more than what most people can understand or will, and I hope, would ever experience in their lives. So to show them mercy sometimes is to speak to them with kindness, to show them genuine and true kindness. When you speak to some of these people and you get to work with some of these people and you actually get the opportunity to show them true, genuine compassion and kindness, it is interesting to see the reactions that you'll get, how surprising it is for them and how welcoming it is for them, because it's so rare for them to actually experience genuine kindness and mercy. I'm not saying that everyone should just be given full reign to be, for instance, my older cousin, she's the minister of a church halfway across the United States. She had a situation where there were two people who wanted to be a part of the church that that are registered sex offenders. They were released from prison recently. And she had asked me what I thought about that. And while I am on the side of mercy, I am also, knowledgeable of the fact that I think that they should be allowed to be in the church, of course. But they also have to be careful, because the consequences of, showing mercy to somebody who's, not doing the work to earn that mercy, are devastating. So it's a process too. So we can show mercy and kindness and forgiveness, but we also, on the person who's receiving that mercy, need to work to be worthy of that mercy too, while also understanding that we're not always perfect and we all might fall back. But I don't know. I think that I like today's message. Mercy is hardly ever seen. We always want to punish, but we never think about what that does to the person. Does it help them, or does it just convince them that they're less than? Something to think about, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am interested in the story that Ron told about that they received from Stan Thornburg about the rich man and the limousine and the migrant and the pickup and so forth. And I really began to wonder, I don't want to do injustice to the rich gentleman, but if he was afraid he might be placed in the category of wokeness, WOKENESS, wokeness. There is upon the land today a kind of a spirit of vengeance, vindictiveness being advocated by one former president and present politician, and it's being eaten up by what's called his base. But I can't help but think that that whole attitude of vindictiveness, lack of compassion, retribution, is not having an impact upon society in general, to the point where if you show mercy today in some tangible way, true compassion and caring, you're considering part of the woke crowd. That's odd. I guess I don't want to take issue with the text in Matthew 5 that if we are merciful, we will be shown mercy, because on a purely horizontal, vertical level, God will show mercy. But I'm afraid on the purely horizontal level, it doesn't always work out that way. We can show mercy, but we can be handed retribution in exchange. And how do we as Christians deal with that? I feel like mercy, of course, has to be more than an attitude. It has to be an act as well. And so I don't know how else we do it except we join the countless people around the globe who individually, here and there, silently, unknowingly, commit acts of mercy. We just plain have to do the same thing. And we cannot be drawn into the ethos of cruelty or retribution or vindictiveness that seems to rule the political language of the day. We've got to be better than that as Christians, as followers of Jesus. And that's not always easy, because it's human, I guess, to want to be vindictive ourselves. But blessed are the merciful, for we shall be shown mercy. But we need to be a community of mercy givers in action as well as in attitude.
Thank you.
I've been thinking too, I guess based for like on number 3, that, and I'm still in processing it in a lot of levels, that I think we are overwhelmed and maybe have been looking more towards justice because we are overwhelmed and there's so much going on wrong around us. But then I also thought, it can't be, I don't think it can be maybe an either or. I don't think it can be mercy or justice. I think it has to be mercy and justice in order to not perpetuate the problems and things into the next generation. That we're not, I think it's closer that mercy and justice get to one another, the more positive reactions and maybe things can be more in control, and we aren't handing all our problems and perpetuating them into the next generations. And then I thought, all right, that tells me we really need God, because I don't know anyone who's much more just or much more merciful than God.
Thank you, Becky.
The clock on the wall is kind of unforgiving. It shows that we are just a couple of minutes past the top of the hour. I do not want to inhibit anyone from speaking if you know that you should. We'll wait just another minute or two, and if there's something that's on your heart that you know you should share, please be faithful to do that. We won't belabor this, but if you think of something that you know you should share, wave your arms or something, get my attention, and we'll stop what we're doing. In closing, I do think that, well, Pat Denny, I once was a college basketball player. I kind of remember what it feels like. My suggestion would be bake them cookies. Those guys love cookies. Take them about 10 pounds of cookies, and they'll be much better off. That's a really interesting illustration of what we're all up against. Thank you so much for these wise things that have been shared today. I'm just so grateful to be a part of this group of ministers. Amazing stuff. We're going to sing to close this. If I can get my throat cleared, we'll sing number 338 in our hymnal, At Calvary, number 338. Give me just a second to find it, Mary. Okay, I think we're good. Years I spent in vanity and pride, caring not my Lord was crucified, knowing not it was for me he died on Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free, pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found liberty at Calvary. By God's word at last my sin I learned, then I trembled at the law I'd spurned, till my guilty soul imploring turned to Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free, pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found liberty at Calvary. Now I've given to Jesus everything. Now I gladly own him as my King. Now my raptured soul can only sing of Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free, pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found liberty at Calvary. Oh, the love that drew salvation's plan. Oh, the grace that brought it down to man. Oh, the mighty gulf that God did span at Calvary. grace was free. Pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burden sore found liberty at Calvary. Thank you very much. I hope that will be the earworm that bothers you all day. I hope you hear the chorus of that song all day long today. That would be a wonderful gift. Before we go, we want to make sure that friends know what's happening around here this week. Our weekly calendar thing's kind of full today. I don't think there are any other groups to get today. Do you not want anything said about next door? With apologies to all of you who are online, but to emphasize the handout that Pam has given those who are here in the room, she wants to show off the kitchen that the trustees have provided her, newly remodeled. It really is shaping up, and we're so pleased with the work that's been done there. So there are cinnamon rolls over there in the parsonage, and it's an enticement to get you to come and see what the trustees have done. So you're welcome to go there. Pam will make sure and get over there so that the cinnamon rolls, and I think there's some coffee there too, will be ready to go. So that's today's activity. We may have to chase people out about 6 or 6:30 this evening so we can have supper, but you're welcome to stick around as long as you like this afternoon. Tomorrow, the 26th of February, the Ministry and Oversight will meet at 7 o'clock by Zoom, or you're welcome to join us over at the parsonage tomorrow at 7 o'clock. On Tuesday, the 27th of February, the book discussion group will have their meeting to discuss the novels of Louise Penny. So if you've been reading, or if you would like to learn about Louise Penny's to get a recommendation for something to read, join us on Tuesday evening at 7:30 on Zoom for discussion of those novels. On Wednesday this week, the 28th of February, the last Wednesday of the month is Bread for the World and Fast Once a Month Day, so we encourage you to join us in that activity if you feel led. That evening at 5:30, we'll break our fast with prayer soup supper at the parsonage, 5:30 p.m. The Welcome Class Bible Study will meet then at 7 o'clock on Wednesday evening, and the Fabulous Friends and Parsonage Classes Zoom check-in will be at 8:15. The Welcome Class, when you gather this Wednesday, we'll be looking at lesson number 2 in the Winter Quarterly, based on the book of James, from James chapter 2. The lesson is entitled Love and Faith in Action. So you are welcome to join us. There are quarterlies available. We'll be glad to give you the Zoom link. We would love to have more people join us for Bible study on Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. On Thursday this week, I hope you've planned a big day of celebration of Leap Day, and walk around jumping or something. Surely there will be some activities you can participate in on Leap Day, but that evening, be sure and join us for the vocal choir practice downstairs in the choir room at 6:30 p.m., and then the chiming choir practice in the downstairs parlor at 7:15. Next Sunday, March the 3rd, we will be right back here in the same place, in the same manner, at the same time, 10 o'clock. Please join us, and please bring a new friend. We always love to have new folks come and experience this wonderful gathering of ministers. Please join us next Sunday, March the 3rd. Just a couple of days after that, March the 4th, will be the USFW meeting. Pam is tentatively planning on that being an afternoon meeting unless we get buried in snow between now and then. So that will be an in-person meeting at 2 o'clock here at the Meeting House on Monday, the 4th of March. And then don't forget that our March monthly meeting for business will be held on Wednesday, March the 6th at 7 p.m. by Zoom. I think the only other announcement we need to make is just to remind you there is an offering plate over there on the table at the entrance door to the parlor area. We are so grateful for the way friends have supported the ministries of Winchester Friends. So thank you for that, and please continue to seek the Lord's guidance about how you can be involved in all that we are doing here at Winchester Friends. On the prayer concern side of the sheet, there's just not a whole lot on there this week. We kind of like that when people are well and not having to pester the doctors too much. Susan Simons is once again with us and still just looking as healthy as ever, but she is in a process, and Pam believes that it was the 6th of March when she is scheduled to be down in Indianapolis in the area there to consult with specialists and to probably undergo some more tests in preparation for heart valve surgery. Second on our list, I've listed my distant cousin, Charlie Boyd, in Wichita with us today, who is in a process of medical care for multiple things, but the really concerning one, I think, is this heart valve for him that is not working either. So please keep Charlie and Valerie in your prayers as they deal with that. We, as always, encourage you to be praying for our friends and family members who are in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Just remember them always and ask the Lord to be close to them, to encourage them. And our cancer list today, continue please praying for those who are dealing with cancer in some way. Deborah Lilly, Mike Murphy, who is the Edmund's son-in-law, James Lewis, who is Suzanne Weber's friend, Candy Carr, who is Nancy Wolf's friend in Columbus. Nancy told us this past week that Candy has at least tentatively made a decision to submit to another go-around of immunotherapy infusions in search for one that is going to be effective and cause improvement. So please pray for Candy and her doctors as they make those decisions and enter that process. And as always, we ask that you pray for peace. It just feels more imperative that we do that every week. So please keep an eye on the news. Watch for where God might be at work in the world to bring peace to places of extreme violence. Ask the Lord to speak peace into the hearts of those who seem only to be filled with rage. Today's discussion has been at least partially about that. It is a way that we can work for mercy in the world. And Gage will hate me for this, but the last couple of times we've talked to him, he has just expressed real concern about a test that's coming up in a couple of weeks in an accounting class that he's taking. This is at Indiana University East, right?
It's Ivy Tech right now. That's the next school.
Ivy Tech, okay. So I would really appreciate you praying for Gage as he's working on a topic that is just kind of awfully new to him and learning a new language and new skills. And you know good and well he's probably going to get a 95, and then he'll just gripe to high heaven about those 5 points he didn't get. That's kind of been the typical pattern, but I just remember what that's like in college. So please know friends are going to be praying for you, Gage. This is going to be okay. Are there other concerns that you would like added to our list before we close? Online, you'll need to unmute. In here, you can wave your arm or speak up. Pat, hang on, I'll unmute you. Hang on.
Think I did. I didn't unmute. Oh, okay.
There you go.
This is just an FYI. It was brought to my attention by Ellen via Shirley that there is a player on the IU basketball game who lives down the street from her, who is from Winchester, obviously. He is Black. He's had the opportunity to play because we've had so many injuries. His first name is Peyton, and I think he's number 34, and I don't remember his last name. But I think that would be a great opportunity for Winchester or even the Friends meeting to send him a note of encouragement. Like you said, send him some cookies. Just something that Winchester is aware that he was a transfer from Ball State, and this is a really big deal to him. I don't know him personally, but I just think that's a perfect opportunity to express some mercy and understanding. That's it.
Thank you, Pat. We will keep him in our... There you go. Anything else?
I would request a prayer also. I've had some tests done. Seems like I'm dealing with some anemia that they can't nail down. Something about the red blood cells aren't right. I've had some tests done. I'll be consulting with my doctor again Tuesday. I'm hoping they have some answer for me right then. However this turns out, I need to have an attitude about it that's like, Lord, I'm in your hands. Pray with me that I'll learn how to live whatever he has left for me.
Thank you for telling us, Terry. We will be praying for you. Thank you. Would you join me for just a moment in quietness to lift these things to the Lord? I'll close in prayer in just a moment. Let's pray. We are thankful, Lord, beyond what words can communicate, for this opportunity to be together with this gathering of ministers, for the profound and wise things that have been said, for the clear evidence that people are allowing you to be their teacher. Thank you so much for your faithfulness to us. Thank you for your presence with those who are on this list of concern. For those who are facing medical challenges especially, we ask that you would be with each one of them to bring health into their minds and hearts as well as into their bodies, that you would protect them, that you would provide for them and give them strength, that you would encourage them. For all these other things that we carry in our hearts, Lord, we hand them over to you in full confidence that you will be at work in every situation. We thank you for the ways that you've helped us already, and we thank you now for the things that you still will do to bring your help and healing into the lives for whom we are praying today. We do ask for your blessing upon our country in all of the mess that seems all around us. Speak order into the sometimes chaos that seems to prevail. Bless the world and all the violence. Please bring it to an end. Please speak peace into the hearts of those who cannot seem to get along. Bless our church. Make us effective for you. Help us to be authentic witnesses of your presence in our lives and your work within our hearts. Thank you for the rich blessing it is to walk as your children. Be with us as we do that for another week and bring us safely back here together next week. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. If ever I loved thee, my Jesus, 'tis now. What a great way to close a meeting. Thank you for being with us. God bless you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Go in peace.